Health officials in Virginia are warning travelers at Dulles and Reagan airports that they may have been exposed to highly contagious measles. The Virginia Department of Health says the warning is linked to an international traveler who was at the international arrivals at Dulles Airport between 4 and 8 o'clock on Wednesday, January the 3rd, then at Terminal A at Reagan Airport the following day between 2:30 and 6:30 in the afternoon. They added the virus can stay in the air as long as 2 hours after the presence of an infected person, and for those who step foot in the airports to watch for symptoms until January the 24th.
Okay, welcome. It's Tuesday, 16 January, year of our Lord 2024. Thank you for you're here for the second hour of the late afternoon, early evening show. We appreciate Dr. Naomi Wolf. We got a lot to go through, including our interview today with Dr. Nels. But first, is this something we're seeing more and more of? And here's what I don't understand. With the system we have, this happened. Did it happen like a week ago? Why are we hearing about this? Why are we hearing about it now, Doctor?
I shouldn't laugh, but because it's allegedly a serious subject, but I kind of have to laugh because so much of this is so kind of dial a disaster at this point, just press the button for the scary news story. Yeah, exactly. How do they know that there was a traveler with measles? How do they know at the end of the traveler's flight that there was a traveler with measles? If the traveler had measles, did the traveler get measles in mid-flight? And that way they knew when the traveler landed. Why the arbitrary, boundary of checking your symptoms? If you're going to get measles, you'll know you have measles. You'll consult a doctor. What are you supposed to do except be really scared, that you've been exposed to measles? And the other thing I want to point out is measles is one of the most common childhood illnesses. I was born in 1962. We all got measles. And, yes, some like 500 children a year, according to the CDC, die of measles. And that's bad. But all the other millions and millions and millions of children got measles, recovered, and then had immunity from measles. My point is, given how common measles is all over the world, every time you go through an international airport, you're being exposed to, air that has some vestige of someone's infectious disease in it. And we used to just call that, being human and living in the human petri dish, which is the human condition. So I'm not sure exactly what this is, except that the bad guys who tried to scare us so badly and destroy our civilization, ruin our children's mental health, ruin their speech with COVID, are really drumming up again. And they're also at the same time, let's note, at Davos warning of disease X. And all of these things fit together, right? Governor Hochul wants quarantine camps. Why does she want quarantine camps? For a blood-borne pathogen. What is a blood-borne pathogen? What is disease X? It's literally whatever you want to say it is. So this is, yet more kind of inchoate, arbitrary fear propaganda to just make us afraid of being human beings.
Okay, this is why we wanted to start with you tonight on this very topic. Noor bin Laden was just magnificent this morning. She always is, but she was live from Davos out in the freezing cold. But she said, look, the theme this year, after, 2 years ago, it was Build Back Better. Then it was the Great Reset first, then Build Back Better. This year, it's rebuilding trust. In their risk profile, the number one risk profile, and the risk profile, the 180-page risk profile they gave for all the attendees, the number one risk for this coming year is misinformation and disinformation, right? And it's targeted exactly at War Room, exactly at you. So walk me through that, because we had Dr. Nels on. He wrote a magnificent foreword to that book, or introduction to that book. But I want to go, why is Davos, having had their shot at the Great Reset, then having their shot at Build Back Better, why are they in a concept of rebuilding trust? And why are they coming after folks that are trying to get to the truth, saying we're agents of misinformation and disinformation, and this is the number one global risk in the world, ma'am?
I mean, the evidence is out. They tried to kill us all. Like, there's no polite way to say it. They tried to kill and disable humanity. I'm not exaggerating. It's not an overstatement. It's just literally the facts, as all of you know who have been on this journey with us of going through these 94 reports from your volunteers who've looked through the Pfizer documents. So now that many of us know, millions of us know, there was a study that came out recently, Steve, that showed that 52% of Americans think that there have been excess deaths due to the vaccines. Well, many of us know that they tried to kill us or they're trying to starve us. There's a massive protest in Germany that spilled over to Poland and Romania. People are becoming aware of the globalists, and their murderous agendas to enslave us. Not least because people like you and people like me and the other handful of exhausted patriots have been screaming about this for 2 years on every platform that will still have us. So that's why they have to rebuild trust. And it's only sociopaths who think that after they've tried to murder a globe full of people or disable them or sterilize them, they can have a conference about rebuilding trust, right? That's that sociopathic mindset, the anti-human mindset. It's like an insect's logic, right? Oh, they noticed that we're trying to kill them. We'll just have to, lull them into complacency. Surely they'll trust us again. No, never. That's not how human beings work. That's not how survival works. We get it, right? So now that moves on to, subset agenda 1A, which is, silencing you and me and all of our friends and colleagues who are still speaking up. So what they've learned in the last 2 years is they did not, censor hard enough. They didn't shut us up sufficiently thoroughly enough. The words still got out. The dissident doctors still managed to, lose everything professionally, but warn people about what was happening. And so their solution is not, well, maybe we should stop trying to murder and sterilize people and make them eat bugs and take away their property. Their solution is, well, we clearly just have to censor better. And so the biggest threat is people who are still speaking freely, news sites that are still speaking freely, the very means of communication. And that's why you have online safety bills in Ireland and Britain and Canada. And I'm sorry to be so kind of flippant about this, but it's so horrifically predictable, right? That in their lumbering, villainous way, they'll just think, well, the truth came out, so we just have to put gags on the mouths of all the people who are still trying to tell the truth. I was blanket smeared and censored in Britain, and now a representative by the newspapers who took the money to overcome vaccine hesitancy. And now, 2.5 years later, a representative of a group of newspapers in Britain, God bless them, right? I forgive them because free speech is more important than any personal grievances, are reaching out to me to inform people about the danger of the online safety bill that is threatening all British newspapers again. I mean, newly, more aggressively. So this is what they want to do. Thank God for our First Amendment, but we have to, be vigilant always. And they're trying, even in the United States, to come at free speech in circuitous ways. Well, as you know, they came at free speech by the White House trying to get tech companies to do their dirty work. And those lawsuits revealed what was going on there. So, these are the global sociopaths. They're not stopping. It's very important with the rollout of disease X, whatever that's going to look like, for people to be as self-sufficient as possible before the rollout. As I've been saying for 2.5 years now, have your canned food, have your dried food, have your generator, have your candles and your, oil lantern, have all of your records in hard copies, because they will roll out disease X or something catastrophic in 2024. What happened with President Trump's victory is not unrelated to this. I know what happens in an election year. It's just going to keep happening. Trump is going to keep looking like the next president of the United States. So they'll try one, god-awful disaster.
Aren't they scared? There's 40%. Even Davos, there's 40% of the world's population is going to vote this year. And in every one of these fights, virtually, there's a populist nationalist sovereignty movement, medical freedom movement versus essentially the apparatus and every one of its different manifestations in every country that goes kind of the party of Davos versus the local freedom fighters and medical freedom. Nor warned us about disease X. She says, look, you can tell the way these guys are lined up. They know what they got to do to win and keep control. So it's disease X or something along those lines. Are you, the tell is they start with the misinformation and disinformation to try to put us on our back feet, right? And let them go on offense. Do you believe Noor bin Laden's theory of the case here?
Well, I appreciate Noor bin Laden because, she's been in the rooms where decisions at the highest levels are made, right? So I'll just add to it. Yes, I believe her, but also I would add that people really have to learn how to read the news. So you're being told that Davos has an agenda of talking about disease X. And then there's all this speculation. What are they going to say? What are they going to decide? Well, I'm here to say, always I reference my experience as a political consultant. And you know this, Steve, the decision has already been made. Whatever's going to happen with disease X, that plan was made before Davos. They're not going to reach any new conclusions at Davos. Whatever messaging they're giving to the world about their discussions of disease X is preparatory to rolling out disease X, of course, right? So that we know how to think about it, so that we're braced for it, so that our, as Professor Nels points out, our adrenaline is in overdrive. We're not thinking clearly. We're in a state of fear. We're susceptible to, basically changes in our brain that are permanent, according to his book, due to fear. So there, like nothing that we're being told may be under discussion is still under discussion. It's already been decided. The other thing I would warn people is that when there's this drumbeat about disease X, and you can tell that something's a drumbeat or a campaign when it's like they're rolling out a new product, right? There's first, a little teaser, and there's a little more detail, then there's maybe a study, then there's a release from, a description of, how many animals died in what horrible way. Now you get, of course, and this is all part of this, and AI can make this very sophisticated, a release of a lesser disease, but an infectious disease at Dulles in the nation's capital, and you're just going to keep seeing this kind of drip, 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 but very orchestrated, right? And again, I mention AI because the subtlety is beyond what human beings can do, right? But it's what an algorithm can do. Now do Dulles, now do San Francisco, now do, something with important national significance, something symbolic. But think about the role of distractions. If there's a drumbeat that is super scary, that takes up everyone's mind space about a new disease, that means that everyone's thinking about that and not about, say, the collapse of our financial system, which Ed Dowd keeps warning is imminent. Actually, everyone who's knowledgeable on the inside is warning about the collapse of some aspects of our financial system. And also the rollout of central bank digital currency and digital ID that is like China-style social credit score. So I thoroughly expect that when there's this much drama over here, it means that something over there that they don't want you to focus on too much is underway. The other thing that's coming up this spring is the WHO treaty, right? And if we're all completely freaked out, locked down, isolated, they can just, usher that baby through with very little resistance.
I want to go to, you wrote and by the way, he's had 2 blockbuster interviews on here in 2 days, but Dr. Nels from Germany, I know how swamped you are, and Naomi is a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day person, but I know how swamped you are, particularly on your own writing. So I was very impressed that you wrote the introduction to this book. Tell us about Dr. Nels and his theory of the case, because I don't think I've seen a reaction. And the book is out of stock. I mean, as you know, Tony Lyons, the great Tony Lyons of Skyhorse, they did the English translation, and it sold out immediately. And now they're back to get another printing. So tell us why this book is so important, and his theory is so important and has rattled so many people.
Yeah, it's rattled people, but it's also given a lot of people a clear explanation of what they've lived through and what their loved ones are still living through. So Dr. Michael Nels is a German neuroscientist, and he wrote a book called The Indoctrinated Brain, which you just mentioned. And his argument is that what we've lived through for since 2020 really is based on the science of brain chemistry, and it's designed to disorient us, but also to literally change our brains and change how we process information. And so the combination of fear and isolation and repetition of fear messages is really scary. In his analysis, and he reveals kind of the neuroscience of this, erases our individuality. It erases our prior memories, and that combined with a traumatic event like COVID, right, pandemic, that erasure of our individuality and our individual memories, which constitute personality, right, and resistance as a result. The erasure of that allows for the replacement of the self as now being constituted of the propaganda that is being constantly repeated. And that was an incredible insight to me, because I know all of you listening probably, as I have had this experience of trying to talk to a formerly critically thinking, nuanced, educated loved one who could see through nonsense. And right at the point that they should engage in critical thinking, you start to literally hear sound bites from the CDC or sound bites from Dr. Fauci. Like, just one example, so many people I know who are vaccinated are telling me they're really sick with COVID, they're really sick with COVID. Literally, I check my watch, because 30 seconds later they'll say, but it could have been so much worse. Right? Like, they could be dead. I mean, that's their soundbite that they've introjected. And when you understand that the self has been replaced with these sound bites in the brain, not like metaphorically, but literally in the constituent kind of neurochemistry of the brain, then you realize why some people get so upset when you challenge some of the sound bites or truisms, literally that they'll stop talking to you or cut off the relationship or storm out of the room, which happened to me recently, because their very self is being threatened. It's not like we can have a debate about this. It's just different points of view, different streams of evidence. It's literally like, you're threatening the essence of my being. And Dr. Nels really explains from a neuroscientific perspective how that came to be. And the last thing that I think is very important, and I'm really boiling down his quite nuanced thesis, is that he notes that this combination of factors also makes it impossible to engage in nuanced thinking, and that things become very binary, very black and white. And we've certainly seen that as well. So the good news is you can heal. The brain can heal. The brain is, plastic, meaning not literally plastic, but not malleable. It can change, right? But you have to actively create conditions to heal. And that's one reason I've been telling people not to get lost in the maelstrom of disease X or whatever, the measles thing, the latest thing, the scary thing, because fear is actually bad for your brain, according to Dr. Nels. And I believe him. I mean, that comports with research I've done on, for instance, torture and the psychology of torture and isolation, which is a big part of torture. So the last thing I want to say about Dr. Nels's book and his theory is that many people, rightly, have tried from other disciplines to figure out why people looked like they were going into kind of a cult mentality, or behaving irrationally, or doing things that didn't make sense or that were self-destructive. And for instance, Matthias Desmet, the Belgian psychologist, I believe I have that right, wrote a book called The Psychology of Totalitarianism. And Dr. Robert Malone promoted that thesis, and it made the case, building on work by a century of scholars of totalitarianism. It wasn't his idea, originally, which he acknowledges. He was building on work of Hannah Arendt, for instance, who was talking about fascism, German fascism. But he believed that people were kind of going into a mass hypnosis state, or mass formation, I think he called it, mass. And then Dr. Malone added, somewhat inaccurately, forgive me, Dr. Malone, psychosis. And so that theory was very interesting and compelling, but also not ultimately, I felt, satisfying, because just psychology itself couldn't explain, in my view, the rigidity that we were seeing. And so I think that, Matthias Desmet's theory has value. I think it's worth looking back at that tradition of understanding, fascism or totalitarianism, and the psychology of, the mass, and the anyone threatening the mass, and how threatening that is. And, that's all useful. But Dr. Nels, by getting into the biology, essentially, of unreason, of this moment, and explaining how this moment has almost been designed to generate this form of, brain damage, pretty much, explains where we're at and what to do about it.
Extraordinary book. We're going to be doing a lot more with Dr. Nels, and I got to tell you, it's really struck people. I asked you on here also, the CDC, what was this development? I think it's down in Texas. They have to turn over. We're always trying to keep our eyes on CDC and FDA, because I think it's one of these institutions that were kind of revered before, but as people saw it in action, particularly with some of its leadership, and particularly, as you pointed out, CDC, some of the leadership there, they look you right in the eye and lie to you. So we're always on the watch. Well, what's this latest development? I think the courts have enforced on them?
Yeah, it's really good news, Steve. It's another victory. So a Texas court ruled against the CDC, and this was a lawsuit by ICANN, which is Del Bigtree's organization. They've had a couple of big wins recently, and this is a new one. And it's not the VAERS database, which people know about. This is a whole other database that the CDC holds called vSafe. We've talked about vSafe, probably because this is the CDC's kind of survey system. When you get an mRNA injection, vSafe sends you a text form to fill out. And so the database that ICANN was suing to see was this database of people's responses, 7.8 million responses to the CDC in the form of vSafe, this survey on their phone. Now, the reason it's so important is the CDC had formerly released the checked boxes, which are probably something like, did you feel dizzy? Did you have a fever? Did you, not feel like eating dinner? Like very, very trivial, boxes to check. But what the CDC has not handed over to the public, and I'm reminding everyone that all documents generated by our government belong to the people unless they're classified or have very narrow grounds for FOIA redaction. Everything else belongs to us. It's ours. We're not supposed to beg for it. It's supposed to be transparently provided for us. But the CDC was withholding the text fields that people were entering describing what happened to them. And the reason this matters so much is, well, first, obvious common sense. If you get an injection and nothing happens to you, you're fine. You're not that likely to take the time to fill out a text field to the CDC vSafe database saying, I'm fine. But if something bad happened to you, you're much more likely to take the time to fill out this field, giving the details of the bad things that happened to you or to your loved one. And that can include death or very serious disabilities. So the CDC did not want to release these text fields. The Steven Looney, who's our lawyer, one of our volunteer lawyers at the War Room Daily Clout volunteers group, we have a group of doctors and scientists and a group of volunteer lawyers, he wonderfully took time to explain to me and my audience exactly what the decision says, and it's only 26 pages long. We're publishing it on Daily Clout, and you all should read it, because one of the absurd, ridiculous, and hateful things the CDC claimed to the judge was that it would take them 51 years to, white out the personally identified information of all of the 7.8 million either people or responses that they got, and so they didn't have the resources to hand over that archive. The judge, rightly, I trust, he was very diplomatic. He didn't get upset in his ruling, but I hope he was offended by that presumption of his digital illiteracy, because he knows, like everyone, that you press a button or you have your developers,
just wipe it.
Exactly, and then you can download
build an aggregate. Can you hang on one second? We just want to hold you through the break. We want to wrap this up, and you've got a bunch of other information. Just so much going on. We've been so backed up. Short commercial break. Back with Dr. Naomi Wolf in a moment in the War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Remember the other day we had almost an hour with Jim Rickards, one of the world's leading experts in currency, the author of Currency War. He's got this newsletter, Strategic Intelligence. I know people are still reaching out to me about replaying the interview, and we will do that. But make sure you go to Strategic Intelligence every month. Once a month, he puts out this fantastic newsletter that ties together geopolitics, capital markets, finance, kind of high finance, economics, all of it. I think one of the most powerful things he said on the show, we did the interview, you can't understand modern politics unless you understand economics and finance. It's one of the things we try to do here on the show, to make sure working class and middle class people have a rudimentary knowledge of the capital markets, because you need that. This is all about money and power. Better learn about money, and also how money can be used against you, because that's the fight we have every day as populist, nationalist, traditionalist, medical freedom movement. Jim Rickards, Strategic Intelligence from Paradigm Press, the website, Mo and Grace, if you can push it out. Grace is going to join us also at the end of this segment to talk once more about Bill Blaster, the free app that we've developed. Naomi, why is this such a big deal? Why is this CDC having to do this? What advantage is this going to do for us? What is this going to give us that we couldn't get otherwise?
Yeah, it's huge. It's so satisfying. This is actually Judge Matthew J. Kaczmarek, and he's ordering the whole tranche to be produced on January 15th. So today, I believe, and then every month after that, hundreds of thousands of tranches to be released right up until the election. So what it's going to do is it's going to show, I will bet anyone, dinner. It's going to show the criminality of the CDC in painful detail, because you're going to get, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of anguished, personal, human messages saying things like, my child collapsed, I broke out in horrible hives, I got Bell's palsy, I got a stroke, my mom died, my dad died, I lost my baby. VSafe is the database that has been whitewashed in lying about how safe this injection was for pregnant women. And the other thing is the timeline. You're going to see that VSafe started to get word from actual people who had just gotten the vaccine or recently gotten the vaccine about horrible things happening to them, probably starting from the rollout, right? But starting very early. And you're going to see that they didn't do anything about it. And then you're going to put that together with what we told you, that by April, the CDC and the White House and Dr. Fauci, Dr. Walensky were scrambling to cover up myocarditis. You're going to add the information I'm giving you all now, that in September of 2021, the War Room Daily Clout volunteers found that Pfizer was secretly injecting 5 to 11-year-olds and 12 to 15-year-olds with the injection, one group with saline, one group with the injection, to check troponin levels, which shows heart damage. In other words, they knew it caused heart damage, and they were injecting tiny children to check the heart damage. That really happened. And the CDC knew all about this. And meanwhile, we're getting more and more and more, perhaps millions more reports of horrible things from Americans. So it's going to reveal even more than we've seen already in the voices of Americans about anguishing loss.
Incredible. Disgusting. Just disgusting. You're about to see something here in a minute with Brandon Showalter that's going to even freak you out more about the medical profession. I hate to do it. I hate to be the messenger. We just provide the platform. These are the great people that come on. Daily Clout, how do people go, how they volunteer, how they become part of this medical freedom movement, ma'am?
Thank you. Come to dailyclout.io. Please keep helping us. Go to Best of Daily Clout on Substack and my Substack, which is Outspoken. And if in the upper right-hand corner on Daily Clout, you can sign up to be a volunteer. You can also download all of the reports for free. And thank you, Steve, for being the one to usher this into existence. Amy Kelly.
We got the easiest job. We've got the easiest job in the world. We just provide a platform to brilliant people that care about their fellow citizens and people throughout the world and truth. So thank you. Thank you for the work you do, Naomi. Spectacular. Okay, folks, I realize it's the dinner hour, but you're going to have to see this. Let's play the cold open for Brandon Showalter of the Christian Post, and we'll bring on Brandon.
People will ever know the off-the-charts anguish of what it's like to be powerless against the medical establishment, surgically maiming the child you love more than your own life. But Amy knows it, and it haunts her still. I asked her to share what it was like in the final moments when she realized that she could not prevent the supposed professionals from performing a radial forearm phalloplasty on her daughter.
I felt like my daughter was tied to train tracks, and there's this train coming, and I was trying to stop it. I'm screaming, "No, please don't hurt my daughter. Whatever you do, don't hurt my daughter. Just take my arm. Don't skin her arm. Don't hurt her. Please don't hurt my daughter again." And there was nothing I could do. They did it. And it was just the night before, just staying up all night long. Like, I've never prayed so much in my life. Like, God, please do everything you can to stop it. And I couldn't, and it didn't happen. I wasn't able to do that. And so just being in the other room, knowing what doctors were doing to my daughter, knowing they were skinning her to create some crude manifestation of a penis, I just thought, what has this country become? Why is the United States leading the world in mutilating and sterilizing children? Where are we? What has happened?
Brandon Showalter, when he first got that to me, your new podcast, I was absolutely shocked. And the question I've got is the same cry of anguish she has. What in the hell has happened to this country? What is going on? I mean, as bad as a vaccine, this thing that you bring to us is so over the top. So it's absolutely incomprehensible. And you see the anguish of these parents. Tell us what you got here. What did we just hear?
Yes, Steve, thank you. That was the testimony of my friend Amy Atterbury, who I first met in 2019, and I first heard that story, and I was never the same again. And so I was honored that she was able to contribute to our third season of Generation Indoctrination. It's our documentary-style podcast at the Christian Post. And if you thought that story was bad, the one that follows her in the latest episode is a man by the name of Bill Mahoney. And doctors, he's one of the the parents that's profiled in the Dead Name documentary that I mention sometimes when I come on your show, Steve. There's footage, and people go see this at deadnamedocumentary.com. Clinicians, we had audio footage of clinicians willing to give his cancer-stricken 19-year-old son alter the treatment options, which means, Bill interprets it to mean as altering his hormone levels. And so sadly, that kid wound up dead. He died, and we believe that the hormones hastened his demise. We don't have proof of that conclusively, but that's what we believe. You ask what happened, is that the medical industry has become absolutely captured by an insane dogma that's telling children that they are somehow something other than their birth sex. It is absolutely insane. Gender affirming care, we should always put that in air quotes, is now the de facto policy in all of the major medical organizations that ostensibly represent pediatricians and endocrinologists and all that kind of thing. The gender ideologues have captured our hospitals. They've captured every cultural sphere, and children are being maimed, and parents have been through an excruciating agony, as you just heard in that awful clip. We've gone to hell and back to get these stories to you at the Christian Post.
Brandon, I think most people, it started with, it had a real surge, and you saw these stories, right. But then you realized that the institutions were involved. One of the institutions, they were involved, and I hate to be so crass, because there's a ton of money to make here. Mm-hmm. And once these people are caught up in this, not just the surgeries, but they're essentially psychological patients, or however you want, some mental health patients for the rest of their life. Is there any way, we're going to have Shawn McBreairty on here up in Maine, a concerned parent about the sports, all that. Is there any glimmer of hope that we're winning here? And if not, how do we win? Because we've got to win this one. We can't back off this.
The glimmer of hope for me, yes, Steve, is that we are seeing not only the detransitioners who have been speaking out so boldly, and I think that 2023 was kind of the year of the detransitioner, especially as they would testify at state legislatures and talk about the irreversible harm that was done, and often in support of the bills that have been passed through a number of, I think, 17 states last year, and we'll see what happens in Ohio next week. But I hope that 2024 is the year of the fractured moms and dads and the families. I've got Dr. Miriam Grossman's book here, Lost in Translation. It tells the stories of all kinds of other families. I hope that the family fracture, and you'll hear this in our podcast, Generation Indoctrination, Dead Name Documentary at deadnamedocumentary.com. May 2024 be the year of the family, because if we hear the voices of these shattered moms and dads, I think that will put the public in touch with their anguish, because you can't deny the excruciating, horrible pain that these families are in. And I don't care what your politics are, Steve. I've talked to the whole spectrum, right wing, left wing, down the middle. No one deserves this torture. And it's an exquisite form of it when a child gets swept up into this contagion and then is sent down this medicalized pathway where, as you heard in Amy's voice, she had to sit in the next room pacing back and forth as doctors were carving up her forearm to make a penis. The nightmare stories, as soon as they are brought to the surface, and if the public can just hear about it, therein lies the key, I think, to moving the needle. But we're going to have to make ourselves uncomfortable, because there's nothing pleasant about this, but we got to confront this head on. So it's grisly as it is. I hope that people here, they'll wake up.
In some of these, have we blunted some of the legal efforts to make this like normal and legal throughout the country? Are we winning there? Have some of these stories so shocked people, and particularly people in state legislatures, they're going to say, hey, hang over a second, time out on this? Are we making any progress on that front?
I think that we are, because and I hear this just anecdotally from my correspondence that I hear from shattered parents every day, that they definitely feel as though there's less stigma to be opposed to gender ideology, and they can tell it was different from a year ago to today. Out in California, I know that Our Duty USA is pushing, I think it's Protect Kids CA, to get a ballot initiative out there, because there's plenty of people who don't support this monstrosity, even in very liberal states. I think there has been a blunting of the issue, but I would just reiterate, Steve, that until we get in touch with the anguish of moms and dads, things really aren't going to change, because the mass media, unfortunately, is too hard-boiled to listen to any criticism, and they still frame this issue in a very deceptive manner, and they aren't giving a voice to the shattered families. You've been so great to host Dr. Grossman and others who have given a voice to these moms and dads, but I think it's going to be that. I think the parental anguish is the key to turning the tide on all fronts.
No, I got to tell you, with Dr. Grossman, yourself, others, like, people know this is not my line of country, but I'm so shocked, and it's almost like this can't possibly be true. And then you hear your podcast and you sit there and it's just so raw. I mean, you're stunned. Awful. It's one of the most stunning, it's awful. It's one of the most stunning just experiences you could have. Brandon, where does everybody go to get all your content? I want to make sure people get it, push it out. You are fighting a good fight over there at the Christian Post.
Thank you. Christian Post will continue to report in our print form at christianpost.com. GenerationIndoctrination.com is where you can find the podcast. It's our documentary-style investigative podcast that's also on all podcast platforms. Please do go check it out. We should have a new episode this Friday, if all things go well, about detransitioners and some of the carnage they've endured. And as always, please do go see how these families are being fractured, profiled in very integrous fashion at deadnamedocumentary.com. That'll really tell the whole story. Deadnamedocumentary.com.
What's your Twitter feed? What's your social media once again?
At Brandon M. Show on Twitter, on X. At Brandon M. Show.
Brother, thank you so much, Brandon. You're fighting the good fight.
You, Steve. Thank you.
You wonder in a fourth turning when the institutions collapse, you just see what, I mean, and I've wanted to get to the show for a while. We've had so much of the politics, so much of the Iowas of the world, so much of the Taiwans, which we had to have. And we're in another firestorm right now. We get Grace back up here in a second. Let me go to Maine. This is another one that blows my mind. The great state of Maine. I've got family that have been there since before the Civil War. One of the great states in the Union with just great people. It's been so integral to everything that happened in this country, the fight for freedom. Shawn McBreairty. Shawn, tell me what. I'm kind of stunned that this thing is not a bigger firestorm up in Maine. Tell us what the issue is, what's going to happen tomorrow, how we need people on the ramparts for this. But I'm kind of stunned that this is not causing more outrage in Maine itself.
Yeah, we've got a bill up here, Steve, called LD 1735. It's an act to safeguard gender-affirming care. And this is going to affect all parents across the country. It doesn't matter if you're in Maine or not. It ties directly into your last guest. That was very emotional to watch. And parents should feel very uncomfortable with what's going on. We really need a call to action. We're going to be asking the War Room Posse to reach out to these Democrat legislators on the Judiciary Committee. Tomorrow there's a hearing at 10 a.m. to discuss this bill. And Steve, there is no gender affirming health care. The reality is this is chemical castration. It's medical butchering of minor children. And the only people that profit from this are those folks lining their pockets. This bill is psychologically abusive to the parent and the child. And it's just, they're not dealing with the mental health issues of these kids, not only in Maine, but across the country. This bill is able to pull kids from any state in the union to Maine, and essentially parents lose their rights to their children. These kids become wards of the state, and essentially the police departments here in Maine and in your own state, they can't do anything to get your kid back. So that's just the level of craziness that our state of Maine has right now with a Democrat-led legislature, House, Senate, and governor's office. And we really need the War Room Posse to get behind this and try to help out and support parents not only here in Maine, but across the country.
Let me ask you, is the reason that it hasn't gotten traction in Maine as much as we want because there's a stigma they come after you if you raise up like yourself, that the trolls come after you and they try to other you even to the fact of trying to get you fired?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, first off, the public education system here in Maine, Steve, is a disaster. I host a podcast called Maine Source of Truth, where you can download it anywhere. We've had almost 100 episodes. People from across the country talking about the educational K through 12 horrors that are going on. But the stigma is these parents are being bullied by school administrators, social workers, counselors. They're telling people, would you rather have a dead daughter or a trans boy in your family? That is the most ridiculous statement there is. Parents know best, and they need to push back. But, Maine's behavioral health programs are one of the worst in the country. We've already had a couple other bills here taking away parental rights. The Maine GOP seems unwilling to stand up for parents. There are a few folks like Katrina Smith from China, Maine. She's been active in trying to push this LD 1735, this information. But none of the Maine media up here, Steve, besides Maine Source of Truth, are willing to cover this trans cultish agenda that's going on. It's absolutely insane.
So where do people go right now to get all the information? If they can be of help tomorrow morning, you got a huge audience tonight. Just tell people where to go, Shawn.
Absolutely. My Getter and my Twitter and all of my Instagram, it's at Shawn McBreairty. You'll find tweets there. My friend Alvin Louie from Courage is a Habit put up a very nice graphic of what LD 1735 is all about. We want to drive emails through the article that I wrote on your news. Drive the posse to email these legislators before 10 a.m. tomorrow, because that's when the Judiciary Committee is going to hear this bill again. And again, this is a tragic situation for any parent. But listen, Steve, nobody's born in the wrong body. Sex is God-given.
Yeah.
It's observed, right? It's not assigned, it's observed. There are 0 genders, and we just need to really work through this. So I appreciate the War Room Posse getting behind it.
Thank you, brother. We'll make sure we drive some traffic the other night. Shawn, you're fighting a good fight in Maine. Absolutely
God bless
stunning.
you,
One of the
Stephen.
best states in the union, one of the best people. Thank you, brother. Lou Dobbs is going to follow us. President Trump, we're going to figure out when President Trump's going to come up. We're still working that. He hasn't gotten to New Hampshire yet, it doesn't sound like. Grace, by the way, go to birchgold.com/Bannon. The guests you've seen tonight didn't talk about finance, didn't talk about politics, but they talked about power. You think you live in turbulent times? Think of what we laid out tonight, just in the medical profession. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon to find out why gold has been a hedge for turbulent times for 5,000 years of man's history. And folks, 2024 is starting off with a bang. It may be the most turbulent year in the history of this country. Grace, real quickly, where do people go? You got a beta site you're doing for the Android. Where do people go right now? What do they got to do? Bill Blaster's free. Folks, tomorrow morning we'll be back here at 10. We got so much work to do. We're on fire about if you don't shut down the border, shut down the government. Where do folks go right now, Grace, to find out more about the Bill Blaster app?
So you can go to warroom.org on the Get Involved tab, or you can visit billblasterapp.org. And we are looking for volunteers, which I've gotten so many emails. So thank you. We have so many volunteers that want to be beta testers for the Android version. So thank you. But if you want to be a beta tester for the Android version, email us at info@billblasterapp.org. Also, all of the iPhones, every model, every operating system will be available this week. The team is telling me as soon as tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. So everyone will be able to utilize Bill Blaster to call your representatives. And just like Representative Rosendale just said in the previous hour, we need to call them, put pressure on them to either shut down the government order or shut down the government. So make sure to go there and download it. Yes.
Do it tonight. Do it. Grace will be back with us tomorrow. Remember, we got a firestorm. Midnight on Friday is when this all has to happen by. Lou Dobbs is next. We'll be back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Grace Chong, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody associated with this broadcast. We'll see you back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in the War Room. Lou Dobbs is up next.